Have you ever felt this type of physical discomfort? You know, shaky breath, coldness in the pit of your guts, confusion, this fire behind your skull. Yeah, shame is one hell of a drug, and if you're neurodivergent, chances are you never felt life without its bites. Hi, I'm Zeya, Blase naturopath, and this is Solar Synapses, where we study the neurodivergent tale, one meltdown at a time. So today I wanted to talk about the flesh-eating shame. And when I mean shame, I mean the visceral feeling. Because usually when you talk about shame to most people, they'll have in mind I did something wrong. Let me just feel bad about it for like a few minutes and then swipe it under the rug. That's guilt. Shame is a lot different, and if I were to compare it to a physiological reaction that people understand more, it would be akin to anxiety. So guilt would be a bit more like stress, like a burst of energy that allows you to do something in the moment because something happened, and then it's fleeting. Whereas guilt and anxiety is much more corrosive to your self-image and to your nervous system. And usually within neurodivergent people, you find very deep shame intertwined with anxiety, and sometimes pathological anxiety. So that's the first distinction I wanted to make, is how prevalent it is and how quietly violent it is. You see, unfortunately, nowadays within the community and even amongst professional, there's this dissonance, because on one hand you're here living as a neuroatypical adult, and you see every day that you have very specific difficulties that no one around you has, sometimes quite humiliating, especially when you are reminded every day how a normal adult, a productive adult, is supposed to behave like. And on top of that, you also have to add the fact that you might have tried an infinite amount of hacks, even medication. Perhaps it suited you, but perhaps it didn't really change a thing for you, or maybe you added like the secondary effects to it, which was just worse. Or you tried to go through life with sheer will, which I suppose we all know how it ended up. But on the other hand, you have all the well-meaning professionals and coaches who will tell you that, you're perfectly normal, you're like everyone else, but you're a bit different, perhaps a bit spicy. Yeah, it doesn't add up. Like, how are you like everyone else? And at the same time, you have tremendous difficulties, which are partially hidden because you're not necessarily physically disabled by it, and everyone kind of sees you as either a bad person, a dumbass, or someone who's just too lazy to function properly as society asks you to. So when you have in front of you this type of double speech, it can only go south. So the main reason why I dislike those tips and hacks is mainly because they are so divorced from the physiological reality. What I mean by that is that you have first to understand the nature and the origin of shame. So as humans, we are social animals, and for our survival, we need to exist in groups. And, well, evolution, nature, basically created these safeguards that, I was going to say allows us, but also forces us to stay together, and shame is one of them. For instance, so we talked about guilt earlier. So guilt would be, I did something, I need to mend it in order to stay in the group. And shame is more like, there's something wrong with me, or I am wrong and I need to hide it if I want to stay in the group. And so on a physiological level, you mainly have cortisol that is linked to it, akin to anxiety, for instance. And you have specific neural pathways in the thalamus and the insula that are also linked to this emotional activation, to this shame, which, funny enough, are more or less the same pathways of pain. Not metaphorical, but actual physical pain and emotional pain. So what we talked about earlier, the shaky breath, the cold sweat, stuff like that, it's very much real. It's not really about being a drama queen or anything like that. It's literally your biology reacting and behaving in the ways it's supposed to behave. Well, supposed. In the way it perceives a threat, real or not, would be more correct. So that's the physiological basis of shame, broadly, very broadly explained. And it also explains why your brain won't let you forget. This strong emotional charge that sticks to your memory is basically what allows your brain to keep the memory intact, almost vivid, for like years, decades. And that is also how it allows itself to give it back in the worst way possible. So since shame is conceived as a mean of survival, the brain will not forget what episodes are linked to shame. For instance, it will see a memory of you having shame because you did something that was perceived as weird, and you internalized these judgment, whether it was perceived judgment or actual judgment, and the brain internalizes it as, oh, that's a dangerous behavior. We mustn't do that again, ever. And so from time to time, it will remind you, hey, if you want to survive, don't do that shit again, basically. So that's why you're still thinking about that very cringy and honestly, sometimes very innocent thing you did like 20 years ago. Now, the funny thing that you have to add on top of that is the fact that neurodivergent people seem to just be more sensitive to these types of negative loops of feedback. And they are also seen as having lower threshold of resistance for this kind of pain. So that's why, everyone experiences shame, but that's why it seems to be even more prevalent and more violent or visceral among neurodivergent people. there's this whole biochemistry behind it. And that's why I'm annoyed at best, pissed off sometimes, when I just see, well-meaning people, whether it be from your entourage or professionals or coaches, but really just arguing or spewing weird stuff that will not help you. For instance, you have the very infamous, just open your mind, change your mindset, be more open to the world. Okay, say that to my amygdala. I mean, it's pretty offensive in a way. It's like a guy coming to someone who has an asthma attack and being like, just breathe. You could just breathe, No, I cannot. Well, there's also the fake it till you make it, or words of affirmations. I put them under the same umbrella. It could work for some people or under specific circumstances. But in my opinion, especially when we talk about deeply ingrained shame, it might just worsen the cognitive dissonance. Neurodivergent people usually have some type of masking behavior, some type of social mask. Technically everyone does, but it's a specific process for neurodivergent people. And by trying to fake it till you make it, you might just worsen the gap between the actual personality and the mask. So you have you will also just put even more energy and more effort into something that's just not real. But you have this specific social personality or whatever, professional, whatever your mask is about, and that you just put tremendous amount of energy into, and behind closed doors you just have this version, the raw, real version of yourself that does not function how you would wish it to function, that seems to be broken in a way or another, and that seems to never be able to live up to the fantasy created by the mask. So fake it till you make it might work if you already worked on your shame and on the wounds, basically, of the real you. So once again, that's one of the reasons I don't really like this specific tip. Another one that is a bit similar is the get out of your comfort zone. Well, the same applies. If you haven't treated your wounds, if you're still emotionally the same, if you're still emotionally and cognitively speaking like this frightened deer in headlights, you will just confront your nervous system again and again and again and again, and just add up shame, piling up shame basically, and just piling up these episodes of what you will see as failure ultimately. So once again, to me, this is work that needs to be done way before all those tips, because if you apply those tips way early on, you might just have like the opposite effect, in my opinion, in what I've observed. There's also you just need to meditate, or you just need a very intense workout to just keep your minds off things. I personally like meditation. There's an infinite amount of ways that you can meditate. It's not, you don't necessarily need to be static, think about nothing, and just be focused on the primordial void of meditation, whatever. I mean, there's an infinite amount of ways that you can put yourself into a meditative or hypnotic state of consciousness. So meditation might be a way, but once again, that would be a way to calm your nervous system. And that would be, I guess, an advanced way, because if you are in the middle of a, like, let's say, a meltdown or shutdown, meditation won't necessarily be your first instinct. It won't be even be physiologically possible for you to put yourself in this state if you are in the middle of a crisis. So meditation really is more like kind of like a non-crisis long-term treatment, if that makes sense. And when it comes to physical activity is a must anyway, but when we say intense workout, I wouldn't advise to do that. Why? Well, it's quite simple. Intense, I'm talking like actual intense physical activities will just make you produce more cortisol. It's not a secret, it's not a hot take, it's basic biology. Intense physical workouts will make you produce more cortisol, and if you already are in the middle of a cortisol loop, if you are full of inflammation and distress, you need to ground yourself to your body, but not in a violent way. There's also like ADHD and sometimes autism-specific hacks that I personally find not that effective on the long run, at least. For instance, you have the accountability partner or the body doubling technique, which is basically when you have someone with you. So for the body doubling, you have someone with you, and it basically helps you get going, like do whatever needs to be done, whether it be chores, whether it be administrative work, as long as you have someone with you, which is, I guess, a type of passive accountability. And you have the accountability partner, which is basically like a manager in a way. It's someone you trust technically, and that you're just going to tell them what you need to do, and they will come to you from time to time asking you if you did the thing in order to hold you accountable basically. I think it works in a way, like that's something I've often seen within the community, within ADHD circles, but I don't think it is the miracle hack that everyone talks about, because once again, if you have in front of you a profile that is basically drowning in shame, you're not just sharing a chore with someone, you are exposing your shame, your limitations, and your failures to a public, which is not really desirable when you are in that mental state. Another one, this one, in my opinion, is a bit more irritating. There's the create list. Yay, we love a to-do list. Well, once again, we need to be more subtle. I like list, or I like just writing what I have in mind, because I find that it helps with sleep. I think we've all experienced these intense cognitive, excitability, I guess, before bed, and especially when it's coupled with bedtime procrastination. That's just the best combo. I find that making lists for tomorrow helps me declutter my mind and helps with sleep. That is true. Now, it doesn't mean that you will come back to the list. Writing something down won't change your dopaminergic wiring, basically. So, to-do lists or simply journaling is great. Honestly, yes, it has, in my opinion, great therapeutic impacts. But once again, it's not the miracle thing that everyone makes it out to be. Honestly, I'm a bit blasé by the way people talk about these things. It's always like, I understand like there's a marketing side to it, like you want people to read your blog, you want people to watch your video or whatever. But honestly, in my opinion, it just adds up more on the frustration and the I guess the humiliation in some way when you see everyone, or at least like everyone really vocal in the community being like, oh my god, that's a miracle, it saved my life, that's the best thing, and it's just really so simple, and you will be normal if you do this very simple hack and you try to do it. Maybe you manage to do it for a few weeks and then you are in shambles again because you cannot add this specific trick to your daily life for years, or it simply doesn't stick with you. And I guess that's the ultimate humiliation. Even amongst your peers, you are the broken one. I guess that's how it could be seen, and that's why I once again am not a big fan of those tips or the way they are portrayed. And the last tip, I guess, this one I deeply dislike. It's the gamify your boring tasks or make it competitive. The thing is, when this specific tip is talked about, it's always very vague. People will just tell you like, create a game while incorporating this task, or start a funny little competition with someone you know, centered around this task or this chore. And so it's either very vague like that, or they will talk to you about specific apps. Well, I didn't really quite understand why I was so wary of the gamifying process. My personal theory is that a lot of therapists, family members, partners, so on and so forth, just saw neurodivergent individuals basically being engrossed by games and video games in general. It's a very common type of special interest. It's a very common type of heavy focus for these profiles. And I think they just saw it as like a very basic sequence of stimuli. Basically, they told themselves like, oh, well, you have the competition, and then you have the completion of the task, and then boom, you have your little treat. Or your reward in general. And that's how you produce dopamine, yay! And it might work for a short while. But I think these people don't really understand that games, especially video games, are a form of art. You have the graphics, the game design, you have the lore, the story, the way the characters are written, you have the actual mechanics of the games. You have the music, you have the sound effects. You have whole teams basically dedicated to hooking up your nervous system, basically. And I think this misunderstanding is mainly due to the fact that a lot of people consider ADHD, ADD, and sometimes ASD, specific forms or specific symptoms of ASD, to be a defect within the dopamine circuit, a faulty dopaminergic circuit. And while it's not wrong, it's more complex than that, because neurodivergent people are not just drawn to what makes them produce dopamine, they are drawn to a specific context around the interest and the emotional anchor that it gives them. And I think that's why I don't really like the gamify tip, is because it just stays on a very surface level, like stimuli, and then boom, reward, and boom, you have dopamine. Whereas I would rather apply the concept of narrative immersion as opposed to the gamifying process. What is narrative immersion? Broadly, it's what happens within you, within your mind and your psyche and your brain when you basically read, watch a movie or a show or play a game. It's all those mechanisms that allows you to be fully immersed into a story and to be hooked by the plot, basically. And that is why I would rather use and work with daydreaming. And I know that I've heard several times people saying, well, if you daydream, like if that's part of your daily routine, if you daydream quite a lot, that's a bad sign. You have terrible mental health. You need to seek help. And while I agree if it's maladaptive daydreaming, meaning it's pathological, it prevents you from living normally, to me, daydreaming is simply a form of cognitive stim. It's a cognitive stim. And so why not use it to be productive? What I personally like to do is basically just, instead of gamifying, I create narratives for my chores. And it might sound a bit, I don't know, perhaps unhinged to a lot of neurotypicals, but basically I will just apply a fantasy scenario to a chore. For instance, I'm a gnome or I'm a hobbit and I need to go to the fantasy market of the village, and I need to choose the best ingredients to make an amazing meal for the solstice. And that's how I motivate myself to basically go grocery shopping and cook and not be destroyed at the end or feel like I forced myself and wasted energy for nothing. That's a very simple type of narration, but that's an example, a very basic example. And honestly, you can apply it to anything, really. I'm more of a sci-fi fantasy girl, but you can use it with your favorite historical period. You can associate it with any type of subject, really, that you can apply a specific aesthetic and narrative to. You can just imagine that you're doing a completely unrelated job, as long as it's not painful and it allows you to exist in peace and do what you have to do for your well-being. To me, that's how you measure the effectiveness of a tip. And truly, with that technique, you are the one in control. You can decide if you want to be very discreet about it, like have this kind of just little fantasy in your head, and no one outside will really realize what you're doing, that you are. They will just see you doing some errands, but actually you are a medieval peasant looking for your next best deal at the village market. Who cares? Or you can be very flamboyant about it and use your sense of aesthetic, use music or any kind of background. You can redecorate your interior even. I mean, if you are really into the thing and you need to do that to function. I mean, there's really no limits to the type of scenarios you can produce with that. You can only play with it. And I think to end the chapter on this tip, I think that's why I really, personally, the gamify your chores really doesn't work with me, because I will just feel like I'm forced to play Candy Crush while being forced to wash the dishes. I'm not really into Candy Crush, not for more than a few days, at least. But if you tell me that I am the assistant of a Bene Gesserit because I'm just tidying my desk, well then now we're talking. Now we're talking. Well, now that I have spent almost the entirety of the video complaining, allow me to show you quickly what I like to use with my clients during any type of consultations. So, specifically within the scope of shame and wounded is not really the word, but overreactive nervous system, we'll put it that way. I like to work with mainly adaptogenic plants. Like, I really enjoy ashwagandha, for instance. Mushrooms, I like too. Lion mane, for example. I also like to use specific microbiotic strains and probiotics. As I said before, I like to encourage steams, healthy steams. They already are a way for your body to basically self-soothe. Why would I force someone to not do them? Doesn't make sense. So I would encourage steaming, especially if we can incorporate them into another physical activity, like Afghan walking, that I personally really like, or perhaps singing, or specific types of self-massages. This one might sound a bit weird, but I also like to encourage tears, not like forcefully, but like if you feel that you are about to cry, that you feel the tears of frustration, shame, anger, whatever, you should not bottle it up. For the obvious emotional reasons that people will tell you about, but also for physiological reasons. To keep it short, crying will help your parasympathetic system to just soothe you. So the parasympathetic system is the part of your nervous system that allows you to relax, to lower the distress signals, among many other things. Each type of tears, funny enough, have a specific type of chemical recipe. Your tears of joy will not be your tears of fear, for instance, on a chemical level, I mean. Another thing that I like to use is keeping a list of your small wins. So even if it's something you didn't manage to finish, but you still worked on, like a project, art piece, work, assignment, anything, it will basically remind you that you, first off, you're not broken, and second, that you are capable of achieving things, that you are capable of putting energy into what you love and into your field of expertise, for instance, or into what needs to be done if it's just chores. It could be really any type of win. It could be mopping, like a really good cleaning session. It could be working on your next comic. It could be singing something you've always wanted to sing. It could be trying a new recipe. It could be calling your friends or family members if socializing or just calling people is a chore in itself for you. It could be truly anything, literally. And while all those little things that I mentioned might seem a bit general or broad, I didn't do it because I'm keeping professional secrets. Really, truly, that's information that you can find anywhere, truly. It's more that every profile is quite unique. Every symptoms, every disorder, every even living conditions are quite different, and also the way that you react to a plant, let's say, or to a diet advice will not be the same as your neighbor. And you have to also add on top of that a lot of people have specific medications, so you cannot do a general mix and think that it will apply evenly to everyone. So that's why I didn't really make a whole list of the plant or the mushrooms or the physical activities that I'm more likely to use, because it wouldn't be even specific enough, even if I spend 3 hours talking about it. But yeah, that's the end of the video. Honestly, if you have like really, really effective, crazy, unhinged tips or things that helped you in your day-to-day life, or that helped someone that you know, please share them. It's always a blast to read them. Whatever your profile, really. I mean, I was on I think it was a schizophrenic community, and they shared the funniest tip. So whatever your profile, whatever your tip, share them. I would love to read them. And if you are interested for more videos of this type, please subscribe and I'll see you next time.